At this time, we're going to begin the morning bell chant. If you'd like to follow along or chant along with, you can find it on page 20 of your chant book, The 4 Grounds of Mindfulness. Section 1. I heard these words of the Buddha one time when the Lord was staying in the town of Kamasa Dharma in the land of the Kuru people. The Lord addressed the bhikkhus. There is a path which can help beings realize purification, overcome anxiety and fear, end pain, distress, and grief, and attain the right practice. This is the path of dwelling in the 4 grounds of mindfulness. What are the 4 grounds of mindfulness? They are the 4 methods of observing body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, and objects of mind as objects of mind. Section 2, Body. What is the way to remain established in the awareness of body as body? When the practitioner walks, they know they are walking. When they stand, they know they are standing. When they sit, they know they are sitting. When they lie down, they know they are lying down. When they wake up, they know they are waking up. Awake or asleep, they know they are awake or asleep. Further, bhikkhus, when practicing awareness of the body, the practitioner is clearly aware of the positions and movements of the body, such as going out and coming in, bending down and standing up, extending limbs or drawing them in, when wearing the Sangati robe, carrying the alms bowl, walking, standing, lying, sitting, speaking, or being silent, they know the skillful way of being aware. Further, bhikkhus, a practitioner is aware of body as body. When breathing in, they know they are breathing in, and breathing out, they know they are breathing out. When breathing in a long breath, they know they are breathing in a long breath. When breathing out a long breath, they know they are breathing out a long breath. When breathing in, they are aware of their whole body. Breathing in, they are aware of the cessation of the activity of their body. Breathing in, they are aware of the sensation of activity in their speech. Further, bhikkhus, a practitioner is aware of body as body when feelings of bliss, joy, happiness, and equanimity arise during their concentration and saturate every part of their body. These feelings envelop the whole of their body, just as someone who puts on a very long robe which reaches from their head to their feet, and there is no part of their body which is not covered by this robe. So the practitioner with an equanimous mind envelops their whole body in understanding and leaves no part of the body untouched. Further, bhikkhus, a practitioner who is aware of the body knows very well that this body exists due to the interdependence of the parts of the body. From the top of the head to the soles of the feet, they see all the parts of the body. Observe the elements which compose the parts of the body and visualize the dispersion of these elements back to the earth. When they visualize it like this, they compare it with their own body. This body of mine will also undergo a transformation such as this. In the end, there is no way it can avoid this condition. This is how the practitioner is aware of body as body, both inside the body and outside the body, and establishes mindfulness in the body with recognition, insight, clarity, and realization. This is called being aware of body as body. Section 3, Feelings. What is the way to remain established in the awareness of feelings as feelings? When the practitioner has a pleasant feeling, they know immediately that they have a pleasant feeling. When they have an unpleasant feeling, they know immediately that they have an unpleasant feeling. When they have a neutral feeling, they know immediately that they have a neutral feeling. The same is true when the practitioner has a pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling in the body, of the mind, of this world, not of this world, with desire, not associated with desire. This is how the practitioner is aware of feelings as feelings, both inside the feelings and outside the feelings, and establishes right mindfulness. If there are bhikkhus and bhikkhunis who meditate on feelings as feelings according to these instructions, then they are capable of dwelling in the meditation on feelings as feelings. Section 4, Mind. What is the way to remain established in the meditation on mind as mind? When the practitioner's mind is attached to something, they know it is attached to something. When the practitioner's mind is not attached, they know it is not attached. The same is true when the practitioner's mind hates something or is not hating, is confused or is not confused, is defiled or is not defiled, is distracted or not distracted, has obstacles or has no obstacles, is tense or is not tense, is boundless or is bound, is concentrating or is not concentrating, is liberated or not liberated. This is how the practitioner is aware of mind as mind, both inside the mind and outside the mind, and establishes mindfulness in the mind with recognition, insight, clarity, and realization, and that is called being aware of mind as mind. If bhikkhus or bhikkhunis meditate on mind as mind according to the details of these instructions, then they know how to dwell in the practice of observing mind as mind. Section 5, Objects of Mind. What is the way to remain established in the meditation on objects of mind as objects of mind? When the practitioner realizes that their eyes in contact with form give rise to an internal formation, then they know without any doubt that an internal formation is being formed. If there is no internal formation, they know without any doubt that there is no internal formation. If an internal formation which had not arisen formerly now arises, they know this. If an internal formation which had arisen formerly now comes to an end and will not rise again, they know this. The same is true with all the other sense organs, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. If bhikkhus or bhikkhunis meditate on objects of mind as objects of mind according to these instructions, then they know how to dwell in the practice of observing objects of mind as objects of mind in the 6 realms of consciousness. Further, bhikkhus, when the practitioner is meditating on objects of mind as objects of mind, if they see sensual desire in themselves, they know without any doubt that sensual desire is there. If they see no sensual desire in themselves, they know without any doubt that no sensual desire is there. If a sensual desire which had not arisen formerly now arises, they know without any doubt. If a sensual desire which had arisen formerly now comes to an end, they also know this without any doubt. The same is true of the 4 other obstacles: anger, torpor, agitation, and doubt. If bhikkhus or bhikkhunis meditate on objects of mind as objects of mind, according to the details of these instructions, then they know how to dwell in the practice of observing objects of mind as objects of mind with regard to the 5 obstacles. Further, bhikkhus, when the practitioner is meditating on objects of mind as objects of mind, if they see in their mind the factor of awakening, mindfulness, they know without any doubt that mindfulness is there. When mindfulness is not present, they know without any doubt that mindfulness is not present. When mindfulness, which had formerly not been present, is now present, the practitioner also knows this without any doubt. When mindfulness had arisen and is still present, is not lost, does not decline, but increases, the practitioner is also aware of all this. The same is true of all the other factors of awakening: the investigation of dharmas, energy, joy, ease, concentration, and equanimity. This is how the practitioner is aware of objects of mind as objects of mind, both the inside of the object and the outside of the object, and establishes mindfulness in the object of mind with understanding, insight, clarity, and realization, and that is called being aware of objects of mind as objects of mind. If bhikkhus or bhikkhunis meditate on objects of mind as objects of mind, according to these instructions, then they know how to dwell in the practice of meditating on objects of mind as objects of mind with regard to the 7 factors of awakening. After the Lord Buddha had spoken, the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis who heard him teach were delighted and endeavored to carry out the practice.
Ask the incense lighters to come forward, please. The incense lighting gatha is on page 2 in the chant book. In gratitude, we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding, slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Good morning. Good to see so many people here on a cold winter day. Just a few courtesy announcements to start. If you have small children, we do have a place downstairs for them to relax if they get restless during service. There's also a water fountain downstairs. There's water up at the front on the far side over there. If you need to get up at any point during the service to stretch your legs or use the bathroom, there is a restroom on the other side of the curtain there. And then also if you go downstairs, there's a restroom. If you do need to go up during service, we just ask that you walk along the back and not directly in front of the dais. We invite you to join us in the chants. We'll let you know what page they're on and encourage you to join as you feel comfortable. And when you're chanting, just try and chant mindfully, loud enough so that you can hear yourself, but not so loud that you can't hear your neighbor, so that we can all try and chant in unison. With that, let's all stand up and greet each other silently with bows. And if you'll pick up your chant book, the first chant we'll be doing today is the Three Refuges. On page 3 in the chant book. I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving, supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the three jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to practice mindful breathing and smiling, looking deeply into things. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to offer joy to one person in the morning and to help relieve the grief of one person in the afternoon. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. If you turn the page, we'll chant the Heart Sutra together on page 4.
from the deep practice of prajna, paramita, perceive the emptiness of all five skandhas, and deliver all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight, no realm of consciousness. No ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance. No old age and death, nor extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore, the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance, there is no fear. Away from all delusive views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant fearless mantra, the uttermost supreme mantra, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita. Gate, gate, aragate, arasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, aragate, arasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, aragate, arasamgate, bodhisvaha. Dhamma, prajna, paramita, hridaya, sutra.
morning. My name is Kunga Nyima, and I am a teaching monk here at the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple. It's great to see so many people here today. I was really worried this morning about getting up here, but then when I looked outside and I saw it wasn't really snowing in St. Joe, and then the drive up here, there was like the one lane clear, so it was clean driving all the way up. It's really nice. So the title of my talk today is called Forgiving Yourself and Forgiving Others. I thought about this title and this top subject because of the daily admonitions for Dharma students, which the Bodhisattva class is learning. And so one of the admonitions has to do with this idea of giving forgiveness. Repent, seek forgiveness, and restore yourself right away if you caused trouble to others, committed wrongdoing, or made blunders through carelessness or inattentiveness. Keep your mind free of guilt with genuine repentance, and avoid retribution such as hostility or enmity. Constant repentance is constant awakening. That last line is my favorite line. Constant repentance is constant awakening. So I wanted to talk about this idea of repentance today. We talk about a little bit about this every service when we do our closing chants. You may remember our closing chants. For all unskillful acts ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born in my body, mouth, and thoughts, now I atone for them all. So we say that every service at the very end of service after we do our announcements. But I don't think we ever actually talked about that in a lot of detail, what we're saying there or why we're saying that. So I wanted to start out just by talking a little bit about that part. So it says, all unskillful acts ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance. So what does that mean, beginningless? So I think it can mean a couple things. One, I think it can mean that there are always causes and conditions causing us to act in certain ways. And when various causes and conditions come together, we might act in a way that is greedy, or in a way that is angry, or in a way that is ignorant. And that's not unique to us. That's the same for all people, maybe all beings. So in that way, it's beginningless. Another way I thought it sounded kind of beginningless was it just built into our psychology as human beings. If we go back to our earliest ancestors, the very early human ancestors, we can think about greed, anger, and ignorance as being survival skills. If you were greedy, that meant when there was food, plenty of food, you could eat more than you needed at that time. So later, when food was scarce, you would have it in your body for later. So it's kind of a survival instinct to be greedy. Anger itself, to help us keep us safe, keep us from being harmed. Anger is a way for us to generate a lot of emotional strength and a lot of physical strength all at once. So if we think our life is in danger, we can try and scare someone off or scare something off that's trying to harm us. So that anger has a self-preserving aspect. And then with ignorance, we've probably heard the term ignorance is bliss, right? So what we don't know doesn't worry us. It doesn't provide anxiety. In Buddhism, we often talk about ignorance as being related to an ignorance of impermanence, not remembering that things don't last, and an ignorance of interdependence, that we're connected with each other. But being ignorant of interdependence is really helpful if you're trying to survive by eating other beings, right? So if we're depending on other beings, we kind of need to forget that we're all connected in order to sort of put them aside as something else so we could eat that thing to survive ourselves. So when we say beginningless, these are sort of natural behaviors that we have. We don't need to feel guilty about being greedy, angry, or ignorant. We just kind of need to be aware of it and maybe strive to act more skillfully as time goes on. The chants ask us to consider all of our acts of body, speech, and mind. So how are we speaking skillfully? How are we interacting with someone else skillfully? How are we thinking about things skillfully? And I want to define skillfully as when we're acting skillful, we're acting in a way that's to decrease suffering for others and ourselves. So keep it really simple. The next part of the closing chant has to do with an aspiration to do differently, to do better. Vast is the robe of compassion, a formless field of benefaction. I practice the Buddhist teachings for the benefit of all beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passions I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number I vow to enter. In the great way of Buddha I vow to attain. So we end those closing chants. First we acknowledge maybe what we might have done wrong or unskillful, and then we close it by endeavoring to change our behavior and act more skillfully. And we do that by looking to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the teachers, the teachings, and our community as support for us to do better going forward. So this idea of a four-structured way to deal with repentance, or four factors of repentance, is talked about in the Way of the Bodhisattva, which our Bodhisattva class students are reading. Pema Chodron brings it up. She says that there are four powers of confession that are taught in Tibetan practice. They are the recognition of misdeeds with positive sadness, a reliance on basic wisdom, remedial action, and a resolve to do our best to not keeping the same mistakes. So I went online to kind of find out what sutra these came from. And it was fairly, nowadays with Google, it's really simple to find it. And it's a pretty short sutra. So I'm just going to go ahead and read you the sutra. The Noble Mahayana Sutra entitled Teaching the Four Factors. Thus did I hear at one time. The Blessed One was dwelling in the Siddharma Assembly Hall in the heaven of the 33, together with a great gathering of 500 monks and very many Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, including Maitreya and Manjushri. Then the Blessed One said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Maitreya, O Maitreya, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, if you possess four factors, the misdeeds you have committed and accumulated will be overcome. What are these four? The action of repentance, antidotal action, the power of restraint, and the power of support. The action of repentance is to feel intense remorse for any non-virtuous action you have committed. The antidotal action is to put great effort into virtuous actions once you have committed a non-virtuous action. The power of restraint is to make a pledge and thereby refrain from any similar action. The power of support is to take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and not forsake the mind of awakening. By relying on such powerful forces, you will be immune to misdeeds. O Maitreya, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, if you possess these four factors, you will overcome any misdeeds that you have committed and accumulated. The Bodhisattva, Mahasattva should continually read this sutra, recite it out loud, and reflect and meditate on it, doing so many times. Through this, the effects of negative conduct will not come about. Once the Blessed One had said this, the whole assembly, including the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Maitreya, the monks, Bodhisattvas, and the ranks of gods such as Chakra, were overjoyed and full of praise for what the Blessed One had taught. So we often will share sutras from the Pali Canon, and this is from the Mahayana tradition. So it takes place in the heaven of the 33. So in the Mahayana tradition, oftentimes we have sutras that take place in other realms. The idea is kind of like these come from a place of deep samadhi, deep meditational state. So these you hear the Buddha speak from these different places. So I thought it would be good to share a personal story, which I feel like I can use to illustrate these 4 powers of confession. So I'm a social worker, and I know that at my work, when I make a mistake at work, that seems to be the where I really remember it. Not just because I'm getting paid and I want to do a good job, but because as a social worker, I interact with families. And there's a chance if I don't follow up on something or I don't do something for them, it's really increasing their suffering in a physical way. So I try my best not to do that, but sometimes we all make mistakes, right? So I had a phone call last month on a Thursday morning, like first thing Thursday morning, 8:00 from a transportation company. And they said, we just got a call from a patient saying we need to pick them up at 10 to take them to an appointment, but we don't have them on the schedule. Can you follow up? And I was like, oh yeah, they should have it on the schedule if I scheduled it. So I looked back in my text and I had a text message from a couple of days ago asking me to set up the transport, but I never responded. So I must have read it real quickly and thought I would respond to it later and got distracted and moved on. So it was a terrible weather day, wintry day. And it's very hard to arrange stretcher transport for people at the last minute. And I couldn't arrange transport. So I had to call the family back and say, I can't arrange transport. Can you take the patient? Or, could we reschedule the appointment? One of those things. So fortunately, they were able to take the patient. And I could get transport for the patient to go home. So it kind of worked out all right. But it just reminded me, how easy it was for me to make mistakes, even though I, of course, think I'm perfect. But so if I think about these 4 factors of awakening, the first one is to kind of admit your mistake, right? So as soon as I got that call, and looked back at my text, I was like, oh no, there's really no one else to blame here. It's me that do it. I could say, oh, the nurse should have texted me again, reminding me, or somebody else should have reached out to me. But really, it's just my problem. So just kind of admitting that. And then the next step is to kind of move forward with an action, a virtuous action to kind of counterplay or counter against that non-virtuous action. So I forgot to arrange the transport, but the next thing to do is try and arrange the transport, right? Try and fix the problem. I couldn't fix the problem, but I could still try and call the family and let them know what was going on. So that was the second part. The third part is the power of restraint, to make a pledge not to do the same thing again, right? So in my head, I know that was a mistake. I'm thinking about, oh, how can I do better next time? Write notes to myself or something like that. And then the fourth one is the fourth power to take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. So here, for me, it's what I did was basically turn it into like a Dharma talk opportunity, right? I thought, well, I'll really remember this if I use this as an example in a Dharma talk. Okay. So I had a poem that I've known for years that I read in the Tibetan book of Living and Dying, which I thought really applied as another good example to talk about these 4 factors of confession. This poem is by the writer Portia Nelson, and it's called Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters. So you may be familiar with it. I think it's printed a lot in different places. Chapter 1, I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I still don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. It isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's my habit. I know where I am. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down a different street. So I think this poem really shows us how important the 4 powers of awakening can be, regardless of when we remember to start performing them. So this, in this particular autobiography, is not till chapter 3 that they realize, oh, I made a mistake here, and it's actually my fault. Maybe I could do something, right? The first 3 times they just kept falling in the hole and blaming someone else. So we can think about in our own life that, that thing may happen to us too. We may make the same mistake multiple times before we start to realize, well, maybe I could do something differently. Maybe it's not someone else's fault. Maybe there's something else for me. And then chapter 4 is that decision to do something different, to walk around the hole, not just fall in it. Yeah. And then chapter 5 is the going to the refuge and the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, walking down a different street. We can think of the Eightfold Path as a different street. If we're following the Eightfold Path, then we're following a path in life that is going to help us avoid as many holes as possible, right? We're still probably going to fall into holes, right? Because there's many different causes and conditions in life. But if we make some aspirations to do things in a certain way, that can help to alleviate some of that. So this talk is about forgiving ourselves and also forgiving others. So now I want to start talking a little bit about how do we forgive others. One of the classes I went to on forgiveness, the teacher used the example of a car crash. He said, when we're in a car crash and we're seriously injured and we refuse to go to the hospital until the other driver comes out and apologizes to us, that is like not refusing to forgive someone until you get an apology. We're refusing to start our own healing because we want the other person to do something first. He said, in forgiveness, it's very important for us to just give the forgiveness regardless of what the other person says or does, because otherwise we give up all our own power. We could wait our whole lives for an apology that's never going to come. But if we just give forgiveness without the apology, then we can move back right forward with healing ourselves. There's another example from the Buddha. It's similar, but a little bit different. The idea is that someone gets shot with an arrow. And instead of taking the arrow out, they start to want to know, who shot me? Why did they shoot me? What's that arrow made out of? What kind of wood? What kind of feathers? They have all these questions. And the Buddha said that person is going about the reduction of their suffering in the wrong way. Instead of asking all these questions about the arrow, they just need to take the arrow out, right? So that's a similar idea. Instead of asking a lot of questions about why someone did something to me or how this happened or how awful this was or how bad they are, you just give that forgiveness and then you move on to what's important to you, which is kind of this healing. I thought a good example of this was the Dalai Lama. A lot is written about how the Dalai Lama has forgiven the Chinese for what they've done to Tibet. The Dalai Lama recognizes all the tragedy and suffering that's been created in Tibet by the Chinese invasion. But he still has forgiven them for that. And the Chinese government would say there's nothing to forgive, right? We liberated Tibet. But that's the Dalai Lama's forgiveness doesn't matter about that. The Dalai Lama forgave the Chinese for that invasion, but he didn't just stop there. He also adapted a virtuous action. He adopted an antidote to that action. So it wasn't enough to forgive the Chinese. He basically dedicated his whole life to working towards the freeing of Tibet. Right? So that's that action, that changing and taking a non-virtuous energy and turning that into a virtuous energy. That's the person who falls in the hole, but then just stay there feeling bad about themselves. They try and get out right away. The other part of that is the the third part of that third factor is the aspiring for things to be different. So I thought about this in relationship to the Dalai Lama. You know, in a way he aspired for things to be different is he left Tibet. You know, he left the country where all that suffering was happening. I mean, he really had to take him out of that situation in order to work for the freeing of Tibet. If we think about ourselves in our own relationships, if we're in a relationship and that is causing us a lot of suffering, one of the things we really need to do is to take ourselves out of that relationship, not to continue experiencing that suffering. I mean, we're going to forgive the person for the suffering they caused by, acknowledge that this suffering is real. Even if the other person doesn't agree they're causing us to suffer, we have to acknowledge for ourselves that it's real. And then take ourselves out of that situation. And one of the reasons we want to take ourselves out of the situation is to help us to live our vow of saving all beings. If you can think of that, the person who's causing you to suffer is also creating bad karma for themselves. If we stay in that situation where they're causing us to suffer, we're also allowing them to continue out these bad activities, this unskillful behavior. By removing ourselves from that position, we are saving ourselves physically from that suffering, but we're also saving them, preventing them from continuing to cause that suffering. So that's very important. And then the last factor, of course, is taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And the Dalai Lama, we know him as this, even after all this has happened to Tibet, he didn't give up becoming a monk. He looked deeper into his practice and used his practice as a way to continue spreading the Dharma and to continue working towards the freeing of Tibet. You could imagine him, saying that, I need to become a politician or something else, but he just looked deeper into his political path, into his spiritual path. So I wanted to end the talk by saying a few things. One, I wanted to remind us that every time we come to service, at the beginning of our service, we recommit to taking the 3 refuges to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And so just like at the end of our confession, when we go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, what we're going for refuge into is the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, which is the refuge of the Buddha, the way of peace. I go for refuge to Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. And I go refuge to the Sangha, loving and supportive community of practice. So, we take that, just like we do our confessions every service, we take our refuges every services. So every service can be an opportunity for us to do our confessions and realize our awakening. When I began the talk, I talked about constant repentance is constant awakening. Last week, Nasanskara talked about the 3 marks of existence. And he talked about how important it was for us to experience them, not just be told about them and to accept what we were being told, but to actually practice them. And so I would encourage you with these 4 factors of confession to think about practicing them every day. Think about, at the end of your day, has there been anything during your day that's happened to you, or maybe something that you've done which you would like to confess? Some unskillful behavior that's happened to you or someone else that you feel like needs to be acknowledged. Express forgiveness for that. Forgiveness to yourself for making a mistake, forgiveness to someone else who's done something that caused you harm. Then the next thing is to aspire for things to be differently, to not fall into that same hole again, maybe walk down a different street. And then the 4th one, take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. Take refuge in the Buddha as a role model, an example of how you can practice this Dharma that exists within you. Take refuge to the Dharma itself, the teachings, what the teachings can tell you about how you might live a life which creates less suffering for yourself and others. And then take refuge in the Sangha, the community here. We can support you and we can offer suggestions, so that, we can help reduce your suffering in life. Thank you. So if I would ask you now to prepare yourself for a meditation. You haven't meditated before. If you'd like, you can sit in a chair. We've been sitting on these cushions for a long time. So if your legs are sore or tired, I suggest you take a chair if you'd like. If you're sitting on a cushion, just cross your knees in front of you on the ground. Try and sit up nice and straight. Put your hands in your lap, kind of pull them up against your stomach. Right hand resting inside the left hand, thumbs lightly touching, shoulders back. Tuck your chin in. You can have your eyes open or just looking down at the ground. And just bring your awareness to your breath, wherever that is comfortable. Breathing, aware of your in-breath and aware of your out-breath. And if you like to count your breaths as a way to kind of stabilizing your mind, so breathing in and breathing out, silently you say to yourself 5, and continue that to get to 1, and then repeat. And once you're kind of stabilized in that, then you can just be aware of the breathing in and breathing out, of the air passing in and passing out. At this point in the service, we have opportunity to share joys and concerns. So you can think of this as your opportunity to practice with the four immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. So loving kindness is the wish for others to have happiness in their lives. Compassion is this idea that we don't want others to have suffering, regardless of who they are, even people we don't like, we don't want them to have suffering. Sympathetic joy is our ability to share in the joys and happiness of others. We don't have to be jealous of it, we can just enjoy it with them. And then equanimity is that idea that we can experience the joys of life and the suffering of life and realize that that's just part of life. You know, we don't have to be overwhelmed by our joys and sorrows. We can appreciate them and experience them and still, be skillful in our behaviors and our interactions. So if you have a joy or concern you'd like to share, just raise your hand and the microphone will be brought to you.
Hello, this thing is on. Very good. My name is GOT. I have two joys, at least I think they're joys to share. One is that, well, I have to preface this necessarily by saying that I'm a trans person. My name means light, and we could use some light right now. So in this context, I say that last week I was speaking to the other openly trans person at my workplace, and we were talking about things. And I said to them something along the lines of, what we're seeing is naked hatred, but if I can't look at that and repay it with love and compassion, then I'm not doing my job. That's what I have to do. And they said, you're a stronger person than I am. I don't know how the hell you do it. But then a couple of days later, they seeked me out and they said, thank you. That really stuck in my brain, and I've been thinking about it. So knowing that I was able to bring peace to somebody else that is going through some of the same suffering that I am going through was very important to me. The other thing that I'm joyful about is that my biological family wrote to me recently, and for reasons that I won't get into, writing is about as close as I'm willing to get with them. But they said, I admire you for standing up for your convictions, and I that's more than I've ever gotten out of them before. So after everything we've gone through, I'm just really grateful that there is still some sort of love there. We live in times where we're surrounded by hatred. I could tell you about some of the stuff my in-laws have said, but I won't. So it's nice to see that not everybody has totally become lost in these times. And I just think that's really important to remember. That's all. Thank you.
Good morning, Sangha. I'm Shine, and actually, in kind of a similar vein, I have a trans teenager who is extremely dysphoric, waited 8 months to start gender affirming care because of how long these appointments take. And the week before he was supposed to start, Corwell shifted their policy because of the executive order to that they weren't starting gender affirming care for minors anymore. And then this week we found out that they reversed their policy, and he actually will be able to receive this necessary and life-saving care. So I'm extremely grateful for that.
Got two from online. One for Ellen. For joys and concerns, please hold space for Sangha member Ben, who is several months post bone marrow transplant, who is back in the hospital being treated for some type of bacterial infection. And Nicole, also known as Nikki or Sandatri Bava, says, I have a joy and concern. I'll start with the concern. I've been in a depression the last few weeks. It's making basic tasks difficult. I'm hoping for a breakthrough soon. The joy is we have a new rescue kitty following the loss of 2 of our 4 kitties we had. He loves my partner. He's such a sweet and wild little soul.
Hello, Sangha. Going off a similar theme, I suppose. This just popped into my head listening to you, actually. My father is a Southern Baptist pastor. So I was raised in all that. And I was a devout Christian for a long time before, well, fast forward a few years, here I am. But it's been years since, I admitted to him that, my beliefs are different, my sexuality is different. I just want to go in a different direction than you want me to. And, my family took it really bad. But we have still kept in communication. We still talk to each other. And things have really warmed up. It's taken a while, but I'm very happy. I was talking to him about, getting into Buddhism recently. And at first I feel like he got a little upset because he was like, how different is that from what we taught you when you were a kid? And I said, well, that's not the point, Dad. The point is that, I'm learning to love and appreciate more and to be wiser and kinder. And because of that, I feel more grateful to you and how you raised me. And even though we have our differences, you still are the reason why I am here today. So then he immediately softened and said, that makes me really happy to hear. I'm really glad that we can still make something work. And yeah, that's just a joy that I was reminded of. That's all.
Hi, my name is Ivy. I use they, them pronouns. Last week, I got to go on like my first work trip. So this is a joy. I went to Chicago to help art direct a photo shoot for my job. And it was really fun. I felt really capable and in my element for the first time in like weeks. During the first day, it was kind of hard because I am my only trans coworker. And I was getting she heard a lot. And at first, I was just kind of keeping that to myself. But the next day, an opportunity arose where everyone was kind of around, and I just gently reminded everybody, and everyone took it really well. And it just kind of opened up a more calm place for me, and it opened up conversations where people felt like they could ask me questions. And it just helped me remind myself that I think it's really important for trans people right now to speak up for themselves, to not hide themselves, to let the people around us know that we are loved members of your community, we're your friends and family. And I think that's important for people who aren't trans or people who are allies or not to understand. I hope that encourages some of the other queer people in this room.
Hi, my name is Vanessa. I have a joy. I'm just glad my son was able to sit here the whole time, the couple breaks, because that means we'll be able to come like every week and be more involved now that he's reached the age where he can do good now.
Good morning. As much as nobody really likes to admit that they're a Valentine's person, I can't really deny that it gives me cause every year to contemplate affection and attachment and friendship. And I like to do this little prank every once in a while. I usually do it on a very small scale, but I blew it up because I have a lot of friends at work, where I will give a friend a "Will you be my Valentine's" card, and if I don't get the answer I'm looking for, I cross out their name and I give it to a different friend. And if they ask, "What's that crossed out word?" I say, "Don't worry, she doesn't matter." So I did that to 14 of my friends at work. And there were 8 options. And I got a lot of platonic love. I got a lot of romantic love. I don't know what to do with all of it. No no's, interestingly enough. So I'm drowning in love this Valentine's Day. I'm very thankful for that.
I want to share a joy and concern. So, my joy is we had nice weather, so I was able to get up here and see you all and be here in person. Not something I get to do every month, so I'm really thankful every time I get to be here. It's just really wonderful to come here and then not only just be here, but then see how everyone is so dedicated to the temple. People are setting out the chant books, cleaning the bathrooms, setting up the altars. The Nasamskara here and the Dharma disciples were here doing all the things that needed to be done. So really wonderful. People in the tech room next, making sure that people online can watch too. So that's really my joy, that so many people have dedicated so much of themselves to the temple. And then of my concern, is the political climate. And I just hope that we can use the teachings here that we learn at temple in our everyday life to help deal with those stressors. I think that the 4 powers of confession are really important for us to deal with all the ways we feel like we are being harmed by those who don't understand. And that, rather than hating those people, to appreciate that those people are dealing with causes and conditions that are causing them to act these ways. There's a lot of ignorance about the way life works and the way things really are that's affecting their viewpoints and their actions. But just because you forgiveness doesn't mean you don't have things you can do, right? So you're experiencing a non-virtuous behavior, you're being discriminated against. Now, what do you do that's a virtuous action in response to that? What do you do? How do you combat that hate with love, like I talked about in a different Dharma talk? And, you have to maintain your own safety. And sometimes that is maintaining your psychological safety by protecting yourself from hateful speech that's coming out through the media, through Facebook, through social media. And just really, you want to know what's going on, right? So, because you want to be acting in ways to affect the world you're living in, but you don't want to, you have to monitor the spigot, right? It's like a fire hose, if you let it, and then you're just completely overwhelmed, there's nothing you can do. So making those changes in your own life, so you know that you have the information you need to act, but not so much that you're being overwhelmed and feeling depressed or feeling like there's nothing you can do. So thank you.
I have a joy and a concern. I guess my joy is go Corewell Health, right? That's great. It's kind of surprising to me, but a reminder that people are trying to do good things or right things. So that's good. I'm glad. Happy to hear that. And my concern is I have a coworker who has a cousin who at the end of the year suffered a family tragedy, a death in their family that was difficult to deal with. And then last week, because of the cold temperatures, they had a pipe burst in their house that flooded the whole house. It was just like, they sent a video, my coworker let me see, that it was their small dog walking around in 5 inches of water just across their living room and kitchen floor, and part of the ceiling that had collapsed, and I don't know how that happened from the pipe, but it just looked like devastation. And for them to be dealing with that after that was terrible. And then like on Friday, my coworker said, "You remember that video I showed you of my cousin's house and that dog walking around? That dog's her puppy suffered a seizure, and they took him to the vet, and their puppy had to be put down." And I was like, that's just one of those things where, one thing after another. And she said, my cousin is really, really had it piled on her. So I said, can you tell me her name? Her name is Kelly. And I said, can I bring her to the Sangha and say, we can hold Kelly in our heart and send metta, send loving kindness, and, that'll help. So she said, yeah, do that. So that's my concern for Kelly.
Oh, sorry. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you. I listened to the talk online, and I wanted to say thank you, Kunga, for sharing the what I know as the 4 factors of purification. And reviewing that is always great because it's something that we do, that I do in my daily practice, and also practice 6 times a day. You find something that you're like, man, my mind moved in a way that really was not beneficial, and recognizing that and then taking action to change how I would approach that the next time, and resolving like, all right, I'm going to do something really good with my mind for like the next 15 minutes, and I'm really going to watch it. And it's really an incredible practice. So thank you for sharing that. I want to share just joy of seeing goodness in the world. My husband's cousins got married last night, and it was really a joy to see children running around, family communicating from, new sides, both sides, all sides. Really nice joy to just celebrate with this family that I married into, and see this goodness of people just being in love. So it was a really beautiful reflection on how, even though there are times in our world that feel so dark, there are still these really beautiful pockets of individuals connecting and loving and sharing in that with one another. So thank you.
I actually have my name's Max, and I have a concern. I would like to find another job because the place I'm currently working at, Challenge Manufacturing, is pretty openly homophobic. At least there's a few coworkers that I've worked around that have said some rather derogatory things about gay people right to my face, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm not out there. Every day I get a bit closer to saying screw it and just saying that I'm out, because someone has to kind of stand up for this sort of thing. But I also have experiences where I came out as trans at a previous workplace, and then I was treated differently from then on, and it was it wasn't really a good environment at that point. And it was talked about it was my performance, but honestly, I can't help but wonder if it was also that as well, which I'll never know. So doesn't matter. But I don't want the same thing to occur again with this job, and I'm almost wondering if I should just find another job that's more queer friendly, or just try to stick it out where I'm at. So if anyone knows of a queer friendly place that needs a controls engineer, let me know. That's it.
My name's Sun Shin. I use they, them pronouns. And I'm just happy that I go to the queer temple. Thank you.
Good morning, Sangha. My name is Tanya, she, her pronouns. I have a joy to share. Excuse me. I receive case management mental health services through Cherry Health. And the last time I went to see my case manager, she was very energized by seeing how in the past couple weeks I've been able to move out of a place of fear back into a place of love. And it's helped her find the inner peace she needed to mend bridges with her extremely Mormon mother. And more than that, it's helped her shift her attitude towards all of the suffering that's happening in the community right now, from a feeling of helplessness to a feeling of being energized and wanting to be loud and wanting to spread the compassion and love that she feels. And she says that she found the inspiration through me. So I am very grateful that joy and love are able to spread more fast than fear and hate do. So thank you.
All right, we'll take a moment to let those joys and concerns sit in our heart. February announcements. We have an online meditation group that meets on Wednesdays, 6 to 6:45. Everyone is invited to attend. That's on Zoom. I'm usually leading that, so be glad to have you join us. And all the announcements are in our newsletter, so if you don't get the newsletter electronically, please sign up online so you can receive that. We have a Dharma discussion group, meets Thursday morning, 9:30 to 11. Nasanskara often attends that, so if you want more information, just ask Nasanskara about that. We had an Avatapasaka Sutra study group that meets twice a month on Thursdays. And that's also virtual on Discord from 7 to 9 p.m. So you can contact a Sangha member, Will Allington, or look in the newsletter for more information. There is a Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple board meeting today from 11:30 to 1 o'clock after service. So we'll have a very short social hour. If you'd like to observe the board, you're invited to attend. We're always looking for Sangha members who have completed the precepts to participate on the board as a way to help run the temple. There is an introduction to meditation from the Tibetan perspective being offered on February 22nd from 9 to 12 p.m. at the temple. Ige Su is going to be teaching that. So if you have questions about that, reach out to Ige Su. We have Buddha-based recovery meetings on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Mondays and Wednesdays, they're at 6:30 p.m. Mondays at the temple, and Wednesday at the Alano Club. And then Friday, we have a recovery meeting here at 10:05 a.m. There's a meditation and then meetings at 10:30. We have any other temple-related announcements? Donna, do you want to do that?
Hello, Sangha. My name is Chungo Su. Dana is one of the 6 paramitas. So Dana paramita, may I be generous and helpful. The 6 paramitas are something we're studying right now with the Bodhisattva class. The other 5 paramitas, Sila paramita, may I be pure and virtuous. Kshanti paramita, may I be patient, may I be able to bear and forbear the wrongs of others. Vira paramita, may I be strenuous, energetic, and persevering. Dhyana paramita, May I practice meditation and attain concentration and oneness to serve all beings. And Prajna Paramita, may I gain wisdom and be able to give the benefit of my wisdom to others. So with the 6 paramitas, Dana Paramita is really the foundational, perfection that we're striving to practice and emulate. And each of these other paramitas really build upon the first paramita. And Kunga, in your talk, you reflected on the gatha of atonement, and for all unskillful actions ever committed by me, since beginningless time on account of my greed, anger, and ignorance. So we can really, look at dana and this selfless generosity as a way to counteract greed. And wanted to share just a couple words I found online. Giving dana has the characteristic of relinquishing. Its function is to dispel greed for things that can be given away. Its manifestation is non-attachment or the attachment of prosperity and a favorable state of existence. An object that can be relinquished is its proximate cause. So I invite you to consider giving monetarily. There are dana boxes with QR codes, which will take you to PayPal on either entrance here. If you're watching online, there should be a drop-down menu, which also takes you to PayPal. You could visit our website, zengr.org. There's also ways to give with your time. You could see myself or Nasanskara if you'd like to be part of the Dharma disciple groups, which helps prepare for service on Sundays. And if there's any material goods you feel interested in donating, I would invite you to maybe chat with Hausu here to see what the temple needs. So thank you all.
Before we do the closing gathas, when you leave the temple today, just make sure that your space is nice and orderly, like when you found it. So put the smaller cushion in the center of the larger cushion. Try and line up your cushion with the ones around it so all looks nice and orderly. And your chant books, fold those over so they're with the cover showing, and there'll be someone coming around to collect those from you. So with that, why don't we all stand and do our closing gathas? This is on page 6. For all unskillful action ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, or my body, mouth, and thoughts, now I atone for them all. Vast is the robe of compassion, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Buddhist teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passions, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number, I vow to enter. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain. And right side is towards the center, left side towards the center. Bow to the center. Thank you so much for attending today. Enjoy your day. Folks.